Ooh, good question. Let's start with the front bar. Do I want to start with the front bar? Yeah, we'll start with the front bar. So, one of the big signs that the front bar is too stiff is the car is terribly pushy on corner exit. And we're talking front-wheel drive cars currently, right?
Green flag.
Welcome to the Blind Apex Podcast, where amateur club racers tune in to get faster.
This episode is brought to you by Dietzwerks Fuel Systems. Use Apex 10 at checkout to save 10% on fueling your passion. Speaking of discounts, use Blind Apex 2025, that's all one word, to save 20% off a monthly or annual Race Setup Pro plan. And if you want to support the podcast directly, go to buymeacoffee.com/the Blind Apex Podcast. Now that all that lot O business is out of the way. On this episode, I want to talk about Swaybars. And as in-depth as we can get, or I don't know, as in-depth as I am prepared, because I'm sure my guest is way more in-depth than I'm going to be able to coax out of her. Because, you know, everyone, including me, is making custom stuff, buying all the Swaybars possible, testing bars. Evan McLaren is drilling holes in his car for front bars, rear bars, all the bars, every bar. If we could have sideways sway bars, we'd have sideways ones, I'm pretty sure. I get DMs at least weekly about sway bars. And apparently they're just voodoo to me still. Not as voodoo-y as a transmission, but still voodoo. Joining me, Queen of the Northeast, basically our in-house suspension nerd, someone like me who, when they get into something, they must be better than the average person when they start digging. Luckily, she stopped playing with her 3D printer to join us today. No, she's still 3D printing while on the podcast. One day, I hope to see her dream of making H1 great again come true. Jackie Andrews, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. I mean, you said yes, so that's the important part, right? Like, it's not like you hit me up and we're like, hey, can I come on? No, I was like, I need you to explain sway bars to me because I'm pretty sure I'm doing it wrong or thinking about it wrong or applying it correctly, but for the wrong reasons. So, you know,
probably
all of those things.
Yes. And you can have a sideways sway bar, by the way.
See?
It's called a torsion bar.
Well, okay. There's that. Yeah. I don't know if I want a torsion bar. Probably not.
No.
Okay. All right. Hold on. Let's get off track real early. Torsion or McPherson strut?
Oh, what's the application? On track or regular use?
On track. I don't care about regular use.
Well, you got to get to the track, right? I don't mind a torsion bar on a pickup truck, but I don't want it on my track car. Sorry, Mr. Belsky.
Okay. So, okay. That's fair. So let's catch up a little bit. You have it in great detail on Raised FF Pod, but you are spending as much money as you freely can and paying as much detail as possible to your K-Swap car, correct? To the new one.
Yes. The money cannon is just cannon.
Going.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's talk a little bit about what the money cannon is paying for these days.
Sure. Jeez, where do I start? The car got a new cage and paint. I don't know if your listeners are up to speed on the chassis side of things. But yeah, it was a complete car when I bought it, and then I tore it down to nothing and changed everything. So money cannon, cage, money cannon, paint, money cannon, piston and rod, K24, ported head, cams, CNC ported manifold. I didn't buy cams yet. They're coming. I bought so much stuff, I don't even remember.
I mean, I'm sure you're on first name basis with the FedEx person, the UPS person, and maybe even your mail person. So
I got a Christmas card from my mail person. So, yes. Yeah. It's on and popping over here. More than usual.
Okay.
I actually haven't bought a car part in a while because, as you alluded to, I bought a 3D printer so that I could make some of my own brackets and mounts and parts because I can, I guess. More money cannon. Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can. Okay. If you had to, we can go off topic again. It's fine. It's my podcast.
We can post.
Yeah. I'm fixing anything post. If you had to sit there with tin or aluminum or some sort of sheet metal or box tubing or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And make these and do iterations of these, I just feel like the 3D printer will pay for itself eventually.
100%. Also, with the limited amount of fabrication stuff that I have, which is really just because I'm limited on space. Like, I don't have a TIG welder. I don't have a Bridgeport. I don't have a bending brake because I just don't have room. And I can make stuff decent, but I can't make it super nice, which didn't really matter before, but it matters with this car. And so everything's being planned out. Everything is going in a location for a very specific reason, but also it has to be nice. So, for example, the fuse box. Golden Era people know there's a fuse box in the engine bay on the shock tower. But when your cage goes through to the shock tower, you have to move it. And I made a bracket that worked, but it was ugly. And then I thought I would make it out of carbon and make it pretty. And then I thought I should just buy a 3D printer because I'm going to have to do this who knows how many times on this build. So I did.
At least 12 more times.
Yeah. I think this weekend I'm going to work on another one. I also taught myself CAD so that I could design the part to then run it through the printer. Because it's all stuff that doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
That's fair. Earlier today, I believe you offered to print me some parts because I was sitting down this weekend with a piece of carbon and some tape and some rulers. And what AIM told me was a 1-to-1 rendering of my MXM dash, which is not a 1-to-1 rendering of the MXM dash.
Oh, no.
But I caught it before I started drilling and cutting. But I recorded with Grant from Hone Development, and he gives away certain files. He doesn't believe in charging people for 3D printing. I told him that's a little crazy because, like,
oh no, that's a 3D print thing. We just give away stuff.
I understand. There's shipping involved and other things. He gives away the files. He doesn't give away the parts.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Everything is so much open source out there. It's crazy. So,
yes. The freedom of files, because it's not speech, in the 3D printed world is quite remarkable. But I need one of those Honda Fit offset funnel doohickeys because I hate filling my Honda Fit.
Oh,
And I might have also had to lean the K24 in the 8th gen. So now I'm hoping that the Honda Fit funnel fits the 8th gen because it's a pain to fill the oil in that one now too.
it will, because they're all the same oil cap.
Yeah. Okay. See, sold. I need that. But all right. So I this is the question I wanted to ask you. You said you wanted it to make it nice. Are you trying to make it like Ryan Bradfield nice?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yep. The only reason I didn't do the carbon roof that he's doing is because I couldn't decide which rule set to build the car specifically to. Because it was in the cart, and I absolutely could have just made it the same way that he did. But yeah, the attention to detail will rival, hopefully, Ryan's cart.
Well, the super touring field of BMWs better watch out because the show cars are coming to fight. But
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's get into the suspension bit because I talked with Grant about frequencies.
Okay.
That'll come out. It's about an hour and a half of me shaking my head, saying, yes, I understand. I actually did understand by the end.
Okay.
But mostly he was like, your spring rates with the motion ratios on the car and all that jazz is weird to him. But as long as it works, he didn't care. But
Okay.
But in my research for that conversation, I found out that frequencies and sway bars don't matter. So she's giving me the sort of I guess so shake. So
Yeah.
this is not a video podcast, but I thought I would explain that because
That's why I didn't say anything. I did that on purpose.
But okay. Growing up, I thought a sway bar, if I put a sway bar on the back, it took rear traction away and gave me traction in the front. Now, mind you, I came from like humble drag racing roots, and wherever you needed it to stick, you put the bar on the other end. So,
Okay.
how do you define what a sway bar actually does beyond like reduced body roll? And can you explain it to me like I'm like a 6th grader or so?
So prepared for this. So let's start from the beginning of what a sway bar is. And a sway bar is it's actually called an anti-roll bar, right? And if you think about it as an anti-roll bar, it makes sense. What does it do? It fights the roll. It fights the roll, being broad here, in torsion, in twist. So as long as you have a soft enough spring to let the car roll and load the sway bar and link through the arm into the bar, it's going to resist that roll in some kind of twisting fashion. And however thick or thin the sway bar is will dictate how much roll you have. Also where you have your end links on the bar, but that's mostly for adjustment.
All right. I get it.
Okay.
But so the anti-roll bar people, the people who named it the anti-roll bar, also call things bonnets and boots.
Yes.
So, well, at least they got this one right.
Okay.
I'm down with this name and not the other names, but not to discourage the like 10 people that listen in the UK, but yeah, I don't get the bonnet and boot part, but the name is, I believe it's apt in this context anyway. So
Okay, good.
what is the relationship between sway bars, roll stiffness, and like overall balance of a car?
The sway bar, once everything else is set, right? You've got your spring rates where you want them. The dampers are pretty close, all that stuff. You're using the sway bar in our applications to fine tune for the most part. And not to say that if you had no bars on the car, it would be close. It would be awful, actually. But you're using the bars once you've got your bars on and kind of figured out what sizes you want to run to fine tune chassis dynamics, let's say. You can use a rear bar to free the car up. You can use a front bar to help on the way in or help on the way out. So for us, it's a tuning tool, but you also have to, like everything else, get it in the right range.
You're saying us. Are we talking front wheel drive or
Body.
track purpose built race car people?
Every form of motorsports, well, not every form. Road racers use bars. Drag racers use bars. Drifters use bars. So everyone uses the bar for maybe something a little bit different. Drag racers use it for a little steering of things. But it's a tuning tool, and everyone kind of uses it. So it doesn't really matter if it's front-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. You should have some bars on the car, at least one, probably two.
I'm in the one bar camp, but
We'll get to that.
anyway,
We'll get to
that for sure. So you've said a couple things, and I want to expand upon them a little bit.
Okay.
So you talked about the sway bar as a fine tuning tool. Where in the progression of car development do you start messing with them or address them? Like, so let's say I build a car.
Mm-hmm.
The internet tells me to run a front sway bar and a rear sway bar. And then my motion ratios and frequencies get me into a certain spring zone. And then I've spun a bunch of knobs and I think it feels okay, but it kind of sucks either turn in, mid corner, or post corner, or on exit, I should say. So okay, is the sway bar the last thing we should be messing with or worried about?
It depends, and I'm going to say that a lot today. It depends.
That's a very Ross Bentley,
and that's where I got it from. But he's so right. Yeah, Ross says it depends a lot. So does Jeff Braun. Shout out if Jeff is listening to this. You are my favorite engineer. But it does. It depends, right? Some people will go after a sway bar adjustment pretty early in setting the car up. Some people will go late. It depends. It depends on the chassis. It depends on the driver, whoever's setting the car up. In our instances, it's usually the same person. And an understanding of what does what. So, like me or Evan or any of these people that are pretty fine-tuned with their stuff, you're going to know pretty early, ooh, the bar is wrong. And wherever that is in the moment, right? Is the car a little too soft in the nose on the way into a corner, right? Like a lot of trail brake and car's just kind of rolling over and you prop it up with the damper and it gets better, but it's not enough. But the car's good in slow speed stuff, so you don't want to put more spring rate in it and add like static roll stiffness. Or maybe a little more bar is going to help you on the way in. Does it trash on the way out? Maybe it's got too much bar and it sucks on the way out in a front-wheel drive car. A rear-wheel drive car, just flip it to the back, right? Maybe the rear bar is too stiff. So it depends, but it should definitely be in the mix, especially if you have an adjustable sway bar. Obviously, if your bar is not adjustable and you don't have a drill, then it kind of is what it is.
Okay. So my other question is, because you talked about the sway bar being loaded if the spring if the spring is soft enough. So how do I ask this question?
I already know the question.
So that it's relatable to more than just me. That's the problem. I'm trying to be nicer about it, but heck with it.
How do you know when you have too much spring?
How do you know when you have too much spring for the bar that's on the car currently?
I'm sure there's math that can be done. And what is floating around in my head seems way too obvious and easy. But I'm sure some kind of equation of spring rate and compression travel and sway bar spring rate, because it has a spring, right? So it does have a spring rate. And I'm sure there's an equation there that'll tell you like, oh, if you went down in bar, or down in static spring rate, you'd pick up some functionality in the sway bar. But an easy way is if you're making sway bar changes and nothing's happening, you might have too much spring on that particular end of the car wherever you're making that change. And unless something is drastically wrong, like the chassis is broken or whatever.
Which I've had a broken chassis, but it was giving me other things like snapping axles and transmissions. So so let's talk about, I don't remember, we might have talked about this, but we can reiterate it because we're in the talking sway bar specifically. Say my motion ratio and my frequency stuff tells me I have a zone of frequency I want to be in.
What's your frequency zone?
Mine?
Well, for your example.
For my example, let's say I want to be somewhere around like a 3 to a 3.2.
Ooh, spicy. Okay.
Is that spicy for you? We'll talk about my spiciness later. Or I'll send it to you and you'll be like, you're an idiot. So that's basically what I heard the other night. So I want a 3 or a 3.2. Is that just raw spring rate? So when the motion ratio tells me, oh, you should be at 1,000 pounds because it's a round number, 1,000 pound spring.
Okay.
Is that total? Does that incorporate the loaded bar? Do I need to go, I'm running 0.95 hollow bar, and with the length of this arm and the length of the bar and blah, blah, it's a 350 pound sway bar spring. Do I subtract that from my 1,000 and run 650 springs? Like what's the relationship between the spring, the math, all the voodoo that I don't know anything about, but somehow my car still turns fine right now?
So for a production car, someone's going to be screaming, but you'll understand why. For a production-based car, I would come up with a spring rate minus a sway bar. And there's many reasons for that. One of which is it's really hard to calculate the spring rate of a factory bar because you can't just measure it like in the car, like take some measurements and do the math. You'd probably have to take it out and hang weight on it and measure it because there's so many bends and they start to reduce the rate and do weird things. But I think also just in general, like chassis prep, you're going to do it before the bar. You're going to figure out your spring rates and everything else, minus the sway bar. Then you're going to add the sway bar afterwards.
So this sort of ties into the type of bar, because you just talked about the factory style bars.
Mm-hmm.
They are gangly looking. They're
Yes.
I prefer Speedway bars for simplicity.
So does everyone else.
So does everyone else. I mean, if the circle track guys are using them, it's because it made their life easier to deal with.
Of course.
So, yeah. So, how does the style of bar, because traditionally the factory bars are solid bars.
Mm-hmm.
Speedways are usually hollow. Man, I've seen some crazy bars, but
yeah,
I also built half dozen bars that are kind of gnarly. One day they'll work. Yeah, that project is so I can do a Swaybar spring rate change from 250 pounds up to 1,250 pounds in 50-pound increments. But yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I went down a rabbit hole. It's probably not the best for my bank account, but whatever, who cares? Getting custom bars and welded and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so how is the style of bar? Because I've heard people are like, oh, factory bars feel like X. Hollow bars feel like Y. I don't necessarily know if I could tell you, but I know the factory style bar that I used to have on my car, the company that made it, Progress, told me it was like a 430 something pound spring bar. And then the math says my new hollow bar is less than that. But my car turns better on the hollow bar.
Did you make a rear spring change when you went to the hollow bar?
No.
Really? And they mount?
Yeah.
Do they pick up the same spot on the lower control arm?
They do pick up on the same spot on the lower control arm. They do not mount. So there was a crazy part, right? Honda put the stock bar in front of the axle line.
Oh, and facing backwards. Yep.
Facing backwards. And then the Speedway bar is behind the axle line where they traditionally are.
That could have something to do with it.
Oh, so I shouldn't put my new bar setup in front of the axle line?
You can do whatever you want as long as it's consistent. It's not wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not wrong. Why do different bars feel different? Well, an OEM bar or an OEM style bar, let's say, an OEM style bar it's got so many bends in it, especially a front one. You've got to get through all of that to get the bar to start to do its torsional thing. And a Speedway bar, however long it is, you're getting a constant rate across the whole bar. So the way that the bar, for lack of a better term, kind of engages with everything, it's going to be quicker, I would say. The bar would react a little quicker than a bar with a whole bunch of bends and all this other jazz in it. That being said, I wonder, and I've not tested it, if an OE style bar and a Speedway bar of the same rate, same mounting, same everything, blindfolded, I wonder if people could tell the difference.
I mean, I think it would be hard to find a chassis where both of those would be. Whether that would be possible
Well,
to
any
mount.
golden era car, they all mount in the same spot in the rear.
Okay. All right. You're right about that. No, I forget. But the golden era rear bar is very different. It's not as many turns and twists as I've seen. Well, in my 8th gen, that thing looks like somebody threw a wet spaghetti noodle against the wall and then put some end links on it, and then we're like, wait till it dries, and then we're going to put it on the back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was wild.
Yeah.
So okay, so you talked a little bit about the response. So the response of the bars. How do the end links and what they're comprised of play into that? Do the rubber bushings, do you think we could like notice that it was a slower? You can? Okay.
I mean, unless the bar is really light to the point where it doesn't have to compress the rubber bushing to get on the bar, you're going to notice it. You would notice it, the general we, right? The collective we.
Correct.
You would notice it if you kept the bar the same and just changed the end links because you would pick up spring rate.
Okay. So, all right, here's my next question.
Yes. The answer is yes.
Don't do that. Okay. What are the signs? Because I've been running the ASR 8th gen 095 Speedway bar. And at one point on one attempted recording of an episode with all the 8th and 9th gen crew, I had over 50% of the known Speedway bars for our cars present on the podcast. There are not that many. I'm not even sure how they make money on this product because nobody would buy that. I mean, we need it, but there just weren't that many people looking for them, I guess. Everybody loves their progress bars. Mm-hmm. Anyway. And the 0.120 bar came in stock. So I bought it, right? I mean, why not? I need to see if I can get a little more oomph, right?
Okay.
But what are the signs that a front bar is too stiff and a rear bar is too stiff?
Ooh, good question. Let's start with the front bar. Do I want to start with the front bar? Yeah, we'll start with the front bar. So one of the big signs that the front bar is too stiff is the car is terribly pushy on corner exit. And we're talking front-wheel drive cars currently, right?
Okay, that's my question.
Yep. Because it's, mostly front-wheel drive folks. So kind of what'll happen, and coming back to that, other conversation we had about having a soft enough spring that you can get on the bar. So all of those things being kind of correct, what's going to happen, and I'm kind of making it drastic so everyone can understand, is you're, in the middle of the corner at the apex, big G load, and car's kind of leaning over and it's getting on the bar really good. But because the bar works in twist and you're picking up, let's say on that end link on the outside, the bar wants to do the same thing everywhere and pick up the inside. So what that does, it's not going to pick it up off the ground like a BMW or a Porsche or something like that, but it's going to unload it enough where the car is going to be pushy on the way out. Because that inside tire, even though it's not doing a lot, it's doing a little something. And if you're at the absolute limit and you take, 25% off of that tire, that's it. It's going to be pushy. It could also be pushy on the way in, but I think you would notice it more. I've noticed it more when I've had too much bar in the car. It won't come off the corner worth a darn. It just won't. So that's one thing. And then a rear bar, If you've got too much rear bar, the car's going to be loose. It may be loose on the way in. It's not going to be loose on it could be loose on the way out, but by that point, it was loose everywhere. And there's a difference between loose and free, right? So a free car changes direction nicely, but not scary. When the car's loose, it's too exaggerated. It wants to kill you. The back's moving around a little too much. So if you've got too much rear bar, you may not feel it on the way in, depending on kind of the driving into the corner moment, depends on how much you're loading the car in like a trail braking situation. But by the time you get the thing turned in and start to load it, if it has too much bar, the back's going to want to step out because it has too much roll stiffness. So if you're trying to figure these things out for yourself, and I don't know if I have too much bar or not enough bar, I might have too much bar, think of it as roll stiffness because that's what it is. And whenever you have too much roll stiffness in reference to the other axle or the whole chassis, because you can overspring the whole car, you lose grip. So, I think that covers.
Okay, but we've talked a lot about feeling, and since you're Miss Lowbuck Motorsports and you do coaching and data, where can we see the impacts, positive or negative, in the data? So when we do a change and we're running the car and we're like, I can't feel it, I don't know, or I think it sucks, but my lap time is a little bit better. Like, how can we identify that it's the bar in the data if possible?
Throttle application. So if it's pushy, you're when you pick up the throttle, it's either going to be later, or you're going to see you're going to see that you can't commit to throttle coming off the corner because the car wants to understeer off the track, or that throttle application will be later. If we're talking about too much front bar, sorry. If it's rear bar, depending on what kind of channels you have and what you can see, but if you just have like a basic aim solo, right? A rear bar is going to be hard to see. What I would be doing if I was working with someone is I'd be asking them how the car feels to them on the way in if I'm looking for too much rear bar. And they don't really have to be able to quantify it. They just have to explain in any way, shape, or form of what they're feeling. And I can usually kind of extrapolate. But I'm trying to think of what you could really, really see on basic channels with a loose rear bar. The car would just be slow, really. I mean, you're not going to see anything glaring, but the going into the corner moment is going to be slower than usual, and the car's not going to get, like if you look at the lateral G data trace, it's not going to get up on whatever G it can make early like it should, or as early as it should, because the car's just going to be loose. You're going to try to get it to load up, and the back's going to go before you really hit that, 1.5, 2G, 2.5G, whatever you can make. So that would be a tell. But if you're working with someone, you got to get some kind of feedback from them as to what it feels like, because that could be too much rear tire pressure, too much rear sway bar, too much bump in the rear, not enough rebound in the rear to make it loose on the way in. There's many ways to skin said cat.
All right. So I think we've covered most of what I wanted to talk about, except some of the challenges people might have. So, what have you seen are common mistakes people make, whether they're installing their sway bars or tuning with their sway bars, stuff like that?
I see a lot of people not willing to try try new stuff, try a different rate of sway bar in either direction, try taking a front bar off or putting a front bar on. And then setup wise, people have got it pretty good. I haven't seen anything really bad lately. I have given some people some interesting ideas of things that they didn't think would work, but it's math and physics, so it has to work when you're trying to circumvent some rules and you can't actually add a sway bar.
Okay. We won't divulge the creativity around rule reading today. That's not the podcast we want.
No, it's not. Oh God, I forgot I was fucking con.
Yeah, don't do that. Well, let's not talk about the creativity of rules reading with me. But okay. So you mentioned the dirty phrase of front sway bar.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Come on.
in your opinion,
Mm-hmm.
I have some theories actually, but in your opinion,
Okay.
do front wheel drive cars need front sway bars?
It depends. I've been fast with both. I've seen people be fast with both. It depends. If you're really trying to maximize where you're making a lot of changes, right? Like that's where you're going to see everyone putting adjustable front bars on front wheel drive cars, like nice one speedway style bars, because they're really trying to maximize and fine tune. And there are places where the car's faster with a front bar, or maybe more front bar than usual. And there's places where the car's faster with less front bar or no front bar, depending on what kind of spring rate you're running. Do you want to know where those places are?
Sure. Yeah, let's talk about that.
Examples. So a track like Watkins Glen, where it's big and fast and a lot of sweepers and doesn't really have a corner in a car that's like an H1 car, an H2 car, something reasonable on horsepower. It doesn't really have a corner that's like a slow dig to a straightaway. Everything's kind of fast. And every corner's got a bunch of camber, so the G load goes up. So there you're going to want more front sway bar. And if you don't have one, a front sway bar is going to be faster. And then at a place like, Lime Rock is the same. Lime Rock with like a front bar because you're just going 90 miles an hour for a minute. Places where you have more corners where the car needs to be good on the exit. Trying to think. Well, like Thunderbolt, I don't know how many people have been there, but Thunderbolt's got a couple of those corners. Lightning kind of doesn't. It has one of those corners, but that's where you want a little less front roll stiffness in a sway bar so that you've got that droop, that inside droop happening, and it helps the car to come off the corner. So you'll run less bar or no bar. And then like aero starts to come into play. If you've got a bigger splitter than an H2 car, you may tune with the bar a little more because it's going to like it without giving away too much.
So what I've seen is the cars from what the people I stalk on Instagram, the cars that play with front wheel drive cars that play with front sway bars tend to run a very large front tire.
Yeah.
That's the trend I see. Layman looking from my phone, flipping, scrolling. And I run a 245, and I think it's small enough and I'm stiff enough that I don't need one. I've tried. I haven't tried it on a softer spring, so I'll give that. But it made life miserable at Summit Point. And I was like, if it won't turn at Summit Point, it won't turn anywhere. I actually pitched some of them into the woods on test day. I was like, I don't need these. And then I went and grabbed them because...
Let me guess. With the Swaybar, the car was terrible in 1 and 5.
Oh, the car was terrible. If I wasn't doing 100 miles an hour, the car felt terrible. Like, not 100, but, you know, in the 90 plus range. So I was cool in 3, 4, 9, and 10. And then everywhere else, I was like, what has happened to this vehicle?
What did it feel like?
Well, I couldn't keep front tires on it. So I had
that. Just dynamically, what did it feel like? Just understeer?
Yeah, major understeer. It was from turn in all the way through. Like lot of pedal modulation to get some sort of seesawing rotation in the car to get it around the track. So it was pretty rough for me. But you know, what's your feelings on folks, because they also, the bigger tire guys are also on double wishbone. So double wishbone versus McPherson and how the Swaybars play there.
It depends. As far as whatever the front suspension design is, it depends. You just got to try it and see what works. I don't think I've tried a strut car at all with no front bar. I've definitely tried them with pretty light bars and a lot of spring, and it was okay. I actually kind of liked it with a little more bar and a little less spring, but c'est la vie. But you gotta try it. Like, for instance, with your car driving like trash at Summit with a front bar. I don't know what the spring rate was or the sway bar size was, but depending on where it's being pushy and annoying, I may have just taken spring out of the car and left the bar, depending on the size of the bar, obviously. Some people will say that you absolutely have to have a front sway bar on a McPherson car. I don't agree, because I'm sure you can make it work without a front bar. Is it ideal? No. It's never going to be ideal, because now you have that no adjustment. And sometimes you're going to want a bar. But you can make it work. You can make anything work. So I think if you can make a car work with a front sway bar that has some kind of adjustment, you're gaining a little bit of adjustability. You have one more thing to adjust. If you don't want adjustment in the car, then, I mean, either don't adjust it or take it off, but that doesn't really apply. But I would like to see at least a little front bar in the car.
I put the smallest bar. I was running 1,000 pound front springs.
You know, you had too much front spring.
Tell that to my splitter. But and no, it can't go up any higher. So I have to keep it off the ground or it doesn't work. Anyway.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, I had 1,000 pound front springs and I don't know what the smallest factory bar is, but I had 3 factory bars and 3 aftermarket front bars. Mm-hmm. So 6 front bars, all different sizes. And
none of them worked.
I started with the stiffest, and I should have started with the smallest, because if the smallest didn't work, I didn't have to keep testing. But I went to the smallest as my second, and I was like, nope. That's when both of them went flying in the woods.
And 1,000 pounds of front spring is not a lot, so I'm surprised. It may have been more to do with the lack of droop on the inside than like the total dynamic of too much spring rate.
Yeah, that's the second conversation that's come up about droop in my car. So we're going to go back to the well on this one. probably before the season starts. But it's freezing outside, and it's going to snow this weekend. And I don't want to sit on a heating pad just to start messing around with droop, in my bib overalls with coats, with a heater pointed at. No, everybody says I'm rich, and I'm not. Okay,
you are.
I'm not.
Yeah, you
not at
Don't
all.
let him lie to you, folks. He's loaded.
I'm not loaded.
Look at his angel. He's loaded.
I've gotten loaded, but I'm not loaded. All right. So this is actually what I really wanted to talk about with you.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to do the 2026 segment, so let's get this started. ABS or no ABS in your race car?
ABS.
Okay. All right. We're coming back because it's been like 3 no ABS and now 2 ABS. Okay. All right. Sweet. Let's see. Are you a stand on the ABS kind of gal? Or are you a ease into the ABS kind of gal?
That depends on the ABS.
Okay.
If I know that it doesn't have ice mode and I'm not going to die, then I'll probably stand on the ABS. Otherwise, I'm going to ease into it, but I'm going to use it.
Okay. All right.
Put it this way. With a factory type of ABS, I'm going to use it as much as it will let me.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll go with that. I'll tick mark you as a stand on it kind of gal. So
Sure.
This was all Baker's fault because at the end of the year last year, he was like, "You're not standing on your ABS. I just stand on it and let the ABS do the work in the braking zone." Because he told me some crazy story about braking at the 3 marker at Summit Point. And I was like, if I start braking at the 3 marker, I'm not going to stop until I'm on the skid pad on the other side of the access wall in turn 1.
Mm.
So, anyway.
We could talk about that offline.
Yeah, let's talk about that offline. I might edit this part out or not. Probably not. But, Jackie, it's been a pleasure. As always, you're always welcome here on the Blind Apex podcast. Where can people find you? Are we still coaching these days? Are you booked? Are you free? What are you doing?
I would like to be coaching. Last season was not great for the coaching biz. Yeah. No.
Have you made it officially a biz? This is Dylan and I poking you again.
Well, Dylan knows that answer, so I'm
okay.
Leave it at that.
Okay. Sweet. And Dylan's consulting business. So
right.
The Birdman Consulting or something like that. I can't remember what he was calling it.
EJ2 consulting track. Something.
Right. Rat Consulting. Yeah. All right, Jackie. It's been a pleasure. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Until next time, keep working on yourself, keep working on the car, and let's get faster.